Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns and Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we're going to be talking about the spell Hex. All right, laying down curses, Sam.
Oh yeah, you need an actual petrified eye of a newt for this one, which is possibly it's in my top 5 favorite reagents for these kinds of components. My top 5 material components. It's very classic witchy goodness, and I'm all about it. Outside of that, though, the spell is also a banger. It's just unfortunate that warlocks cast the way they do.
All right. Well, before we get into that, tell us what this spell does.
Spend a bonus action. You hex something within 90 feet of you. The thing you hex is cursed for up to an hour, taking your concentration. You do an extra bonus d6 necrotic damage to it whenever you hit it with any kind of attack. So if you hit it with a greatsword, it takes an extra d6 damage. If you hit it with a eldritch blast, it takes an extra d6 damage. Doesn't care what kind of attack it is, as long as you hit it with an attack. It also has disadvantage on ability checks of a specific ability type. You're almost always going to say strength because that's the only one that really comes up in combat or athletics checks. Conceivably, you could hex something from a distance and then do like charisma checks if they're going to try and like compete for influence over something in a much more intriguey style game. I don't think that's most tables, but the 99% of the time, if you're casting this to kill something, which is what it's good at doing, you're going to say strength because then it's worse at grappling, which is most likely what will come up.
What about dexterity? If you got some other attacks that you wanted to, or if your friends have other attacks you wanted to fail saving throws for?
It only gives them disadvantage on ability checks. It doesn't care about attack rolls or saving throws, so you can't say like strength disadvantage on strength attack rolls. You can't say charisma give it disadvantage on its charisma saving throws. It's just always and forever ability checks. The final line of text that's really, well, I guess there's a couple line of text that are kind of important here. The next one is if the thing drops to 0 that is hexed, you can use your bonus action to move it to a new creature, which means this is something you can just keep bouncing around from creature to creature as long as things keep dying. Very handy. And it has like a thing where remove curses can end it early, sure, whatever. As you cast it at higher levels, though, you get the upside where your concentration goes up to 8 hours for 3rd and 4th level slots, and if it's 5th level or higher, you concentrate it for 24 hours, which it should sign you into like, okay, this is something I want to have up most of the time and build around it kind of deal, because it's got such a long duration. Even like out the gate, having an hour-long duration spell is like, that's going to be the first floor of a dungeon, probably. Sometimes an entire dungeon, depending on like the party scope and size. This will help you through that, so long as you can maintain concentration.
Hold on, it's still just one target, right?
It's one target. If the target dies, you can move it. So let's say, yeah.
Oh, all right, that's fun. Because I was thinking, you were thinking combat, which naturally you would, but I was thinking more like just some guy you don't like, and he's like, running a obstacle course or something, or he's I don't know, just a bard performing. I don't know, whatever. But yeah, I guess that could be arguments for using the longer durations. But
the only problem with that is the thing still has to die. You have to drop. So like, if you do want to be like, I'm going to sabotage this whole show, every single bard is going to roll garbage, you have to kill every bard after they perform, because otherwise you can't keep moving it around as a bonus action.
I was just talking about one bard that you don't like. You want him to lose the singing contest.
Then sure. Yeah, then for the next hour to 8 hours to 24.
It'll be crap.
Yeah, he'll be awful at it. It'll be great. Hex is one of those spells that I think is like pivotal for some characters that want to perform in combat. I think it's one of the like warlock's most necessary spells. Pact magic is a pretty garbage feature, and this kind of gives you a tool to play more of a martial character, which I think is pretty valuable. And it does it in a way that feels kind of castery. You can go a bunch of different routes with it. It fits into almost every single warlock build you can think of, as long as you're not having something else you're caring about concentrating on. If you're new to warlock, this would be the first spell I'd point you to be like, here's what you can do with your bonus action, because that's what Hex sort of facilitates.
Let's take a small detour and talk about pack magic a little bit.
Okay. Pack magic as a mechanic is unique to warlocks, and it is how they cast spells. So as opposed to getting groupings of spell slots like 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, until you get to 6th level spells, all of your spells are the same spell level. It's their when you're your 1st and 2nd level, they're 1st level spell slots. Whenever you're 2nd through 4th, they're 2nd level spell slots. 3rd, 5th, etc., etc. It scales the same tier as the other characters does, but you're limited to the pool. You get them all back every time you finish a short rest, granted, which is a problem in this game because the reality of people playing versus how they play tested short rest, long rests are just about as far apart as any two things can realistically be. And it leads to a lot of warlocks sitting at the table not necessarily having all that many spells while their wizards are running around with 8 or 9, right? If you're only having one short rest in between a long rest, most of the time you're going to have less spells than your wizard friend. If you're having no short rests in between long rests, almost always you have less spells than your wizard friend. And if you're going into your table and, you know, your DM just prepares by the week and they're like, oh, one big encounter, some cool RP stuff, and we're good. You're not going to necessarily run into short rests all that often. And you're going to start fundamentally feeling like, oh, I have just less stuff that everyone else does. At least all of their full casters do. That lies some of the problems with pack magic and why having a high duration spell like Hex is kind of valuable, because it kind of lets you stretch the value out of your spell slots by making them last longer. You have to really care about the impact your spells have. It's a big reason why a lot of Warlock spells, I'm like, this is utter garbage, because it doesn't have higher level scaling. So if you have like a second level Warlock spell that doesn't scale with your with its spell level, it's just always a second level spell using 5th level slots, and you don't want to be spending 5th level slots on second level spells. So it makes the class and the spells in the class very different to rate and sort of understand and figure out compared to basically everyone else. That's in the box what pack magic is, more or less.
All right. I'm looking at your notes here. You've got a Eldritch Blast versus weapon attacks. What's that about?
So there's, I think, a really compelling reason. The bread and butter warlock spell that everyone sort of gravitates towards is Eldritch Blast. I think that's like the one they meme about the most. It's definitely the one that gets the most invocations geared towards it. You get stuff like Agonizing Blast, which lets you add your charisma modifier to the damage of it, and a bunch of other things. I'm of the opinion that if you have a +2 dexterity modifier, you have no reason to take Eldritch Blast. I think with Hex, a D10 and a D6 +2 are close enough in their average damage and way higher minimum damages with the short bow that I'm always taking the weapons. If I have an opportunity to play a Hex-based character, I think you're going to be better off using the simple weapons you have access to over Eldritch Blast. If you want to go build the Eldritch Blaster, that's fine. That character kind of starts at 5th level whenever you get access to Agonizing Blast. That character doesn't really exist until you have the invocations for Eldritch Blast, because then it's just, you kind of have like a worse firebolt. At 5th level, you can fire off 2 Eldritch Blasts. At 1st level, you can make an offhand attack. At 1st level, you can take 2 short swords, main hand one of them, offhand another, and now you're getting double Hex damage if you've got it up the round prior. So like, there's a lot of good reason, I think, that you should be playing more martial characters with your warlocks. I'm not advocating for Pact of the Blade. That it's an unfortunate warlock feature that is, I'll call it bad generously. But Hex with regular weapons, just things you have lying around, is going to give you a pretty cool feeling. It's going to really make Hex shine and juice it a little bit more. If you look at like a 1st level character with Hex and a rogue, basically Hex is your sneak attack. It does the same damage. You have some kind of prerequisite where you have to maintain concentration on a spell, but you get some cool upsides. You get to be able to put it on certain people. You can kind of choose what weapons and what spells you want to use with it. And even on top of, like, outside of Eldritch Blast, you can find things like Scorching Ray, where you're getting 3 attack rolls for 1 spell. If you can move that into your kit, you're getting bonus D6 damage off the Hex. There's lots of neat little things you can do with Hex outside of just Eldritch Blast. But I will say, what post 5th level, Eldritch Blast is great with Hex. 2 attack rolls, you're at a ridiculous range. Getting T10 plus D6 is great.
Also, Eldritch Blast.
Ultra Eldritch Blast. My first video we ever had on this channel was me talking about how I think the spell is overused and overdone and kind of boring. So
yeah, and I said I would definitely overuse it.
Yeah, it's really easy to, especially whenever you're doing gimmicky characters.
From there.
Yeah.
Oh.
Overall, I think Hex is, I'm a big proponent of it. It being concentration means it's kind of a hard ask for a lot of melee characters. You really, like, if you're doing the 2-weapon fighting thing that I mentioned earlier, you have to be very confident, or at least very lucky, because you need to be dodging damage pretty regularly for you to not drop to concentration and lose the Hex. You really need to be getting like 66 damage out of Hex for it to be worth the cast. Ranged characters have a pretty easy time making that happen, especially over the longer duration. Melee characters are going to struggle a little bit more with that. So just something to keep in mind.
All right. We got anything else to say about Hex?
It's a banger. If you're a warlock and you're in low tiers and you have no idea what to do with yourself, I would recommend Hex. I don't think this is game breaking or anything like that, but I would compare it more to a feature than a spell. Kind of like I compare Hunter's Mark. It's like, that's what you do as a ranger. Is you Hunter's Mark. Hex, that's what you do as a warlock to me. If you want the easy, I want to do something in combat and not really worry about anything else, Hex will give you that.
All right. You got a score?
I think Hex is probably a 3 still. It's good. You'll be happy to have it. You don't necessarily need it. You can play warlocks without it. It is very usable and very helpful to have.
Yeah, I'm going to be generous again and go with a 4 because, yeah, warlock. I mean, it's Warlock specific. It feels kind of like you have to. Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone for joining us. That was Hex, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it, a gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description, where you'll find my Caverns and Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.